This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Global Village. I'm Buddy Kunanan. You know, folks, on this show, we take you around the world, you visit amazing places, and meet very interesting people. We also talk about topics and issues that impact the global community. Now, tonight is a special show because we're talking about one of absolutely my favorite countries in the world. That's none other than India. You saw a fantastic video there. It really is a must-see, must-visit travel destination. Put it on your bucket lists. And joining me to talk about India and Philippine-Indian relations and the wonderful country of India is none other than the Ambassador of India in the Philippines, His Excellency Jaideep Mazumdar. Ambassador Mazumdar, welcome to Global Village.
Thank you. Very happy to be here with you.
Yes, and I'm so glad you're here to do this show because, as I mentioned, I wasn't exaggerating when I said that India really is definitely, absolutely, enthusiastically one of my favorite countries in the world.
That's wonderful.
Great to have you here, sir. Okay, let's talk about you, Ambassador. You've been here about a year and almost a year and a half, or a year and a couple of months. How has your stay been so far?
Oh, wonderful. Couldn't have been better. I think the Philippines is a very easy place to settle down in, most importantly for the Filipino people. They're warm, they're hospitable, they're friendly, they're ever smiling, they're helpful, you know, so it's very easy to settle down here. And fortunately, I must say, work has been good in the last year. Our bilateral relations couldn't have been better. In fact, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that perhaps we are at the phase of best bilateral relations ever. So both from the work and personal point of view, it's been a very happy year for me, and I'm settled down rather well.
Excellent, excellent. Before we jump into talking about the official ties and the wonderful things you guys are doing to promote relations between the Philippines and India, let's talk about your background. You've been assigned all over the world. You're a career diplomat. Where else have you been posted, Ambassador?
Well, I've done now, 29 years in the Indian Foreign Service. I started off with a posting in Hong Kong, where I learned ostensibly to learn Chinese, and also did some work in our consulate there. then to Beijing. That was the first time in China in the 90s, and then I went back to Beijing again in 2008 to 10 as the Deputy Chief of Mission. And in between, I have been in Bangladesh, in Nepal, in New York with the UN, in Cairo, in Egypt, and I was in Delhi in 2 different stints. I was in the Prime Minister's office as looking after defense, foreign affairs, and security, as well as lately as the head of the division looking after this region all the way up to the Pacific Island countries.
Interesting that most of your postings have been Asia-related. Several in Beijing, and then of course Hong Kong, and now Philippines. How do you compare your posting here to other postings you've had?
Well, I suppose every single posting is unique in its own way, and it has each of them have their own positives, their own uniqueness, and I must say I've been fortunate. I've enjoyed each and every one of them, and so it's been a good experience all over.
Very good, sir. Very good. Now let's talk about ties between the Philippines and India. Our 2 countries are a lot of common bonds, a lot of relations, and I'm talking about ties that go back, several hundred, even thousands of years. And I understand that India we do have a lot of historical ties, and then cultural similarities. No?
Sure.
And from your perspective, what are the strongest bonds really between our 2 countries?
I think from the current perspective, we are very common, really. Our relations are, we are really could be natural partners. Firstly, we are both boisterous democracies. We have a rule of law, we have freedom of speech and expression, we have a free press and media. We are both responsible international citizens as 2 countries which are responsible international citizens. We have, both of our countries have the fastest growing, some of the fastest growing rates of growth of GDP in the world today. We have young populations, and I always tell people back home in India that Philippines is the 12th largest country in the world. I mean, that is in terms of population, which is no mean size, 110 million or so. On top of that, we have young populations who are educated, who are aspiring, who want to do things, and also we have very large diaspora, both of our countries, all over the world, and who remit large amounts to their countries and who are really ambassadors of their countries out in the world. So there's so much in common between India and the Philippines. So that makes us really natural partners.
And so much to learn from each other. Like, for instance, I like that you mentioned the word democracy, because India is in fact the biggest democracy in the world. There's no other bigger democratic country than India, and you've been very successful at it, especially when you talk about the elections that you have in India. It's all computerized, and I think that you really have done a swell job in that. Huh? Just your polling system is something that I think we in the Philippines could learn a lot from.
Right. So every time we have an election, it is the largest ever election in human history.
Bravo.
So we had about 700 million people voting in the last election. It can only keep growing. So yes, it is a stupendous exercise, and the fact that it is conducted by an election commission with no interference from government whatsoever, completely independent, constitutionally protected, and there are almost no cases of any allegations of any corrupt practices or any unfair means employed at elections, because the election commission is very powerful and really comes down with a very heavy hand on any signs of any transgression of the rules of elections. So yes, it is really an achievement that we are proud of, and we do share this experience with countries who are interested. Our electronic voting machines have been a great success, and we're trying to replicate that elsewhere as well.
Yes. How did India develop this culture of electoral transparency, efficiency? I mean, how did you develop this? Because this is the envy of a lot of countries, mine included.
I guess it's born out of necessity. You see, in India, we have not only the federal government at the center, but we have now 29 states and 7 union territories which are the federal units, who also have elections. And these elections are at different times of the year sometimes. They are not all synchronized together. So it would have been impossible to conduct elections in any other way if, without some efficiency and order being brought into it.
Very good, very good. And Ambassador, I'm also a big fan of the transparency of the Indian government. There is the freedom of information act that you have in your country, and I understand that some of my Indian friends have told me that any citizen can go to any government office, and really, if there's information that they would like to request, that office is obligated to give it to them within a certain amount of time. Otherwise, the person in charge will be held liable.
So even our embassies are not exempt from this. So we have queries from Indian citizens in India requesting information on various aspects from us. So we also have to mandatorily submit our replies within 1 month.
Okay, wow. And I think what really is impressive about India is because obviously it's a big country, the population is huge, but it's a matter of thinking about the country as many different countries in one. I mean, culturally, every state in India has its own identity.
That's right.
And so to bring all these different peoples together, religious differences, cultural differences, and all that under one roof, and make an election and make a seamless election happen, and manage this huge variety of cultures and peoples is a very impressive undertaking, which I must congratulate India for.
Thank you.
Yes.
You're absolutely right about the diversity. The diversity in India is really mind-boggling. When you look at it, every single major religion in the world is represented. Religions which no longer are extant in their countries of their origin are flourishing in India. I think it's not a well-known fact that one of the apostles, Saint Thomas, came to India and is actually buried in India. So you can see how old Christianity is in India. Similarly with the Jews, we have a Jewish community that goes back several millennia. Of course, Buddhism, Hinduism are native in India, Jainism as well, Sikhism, and Islam, we are the third largest Islamic nation on earth today. Yes. In fact, nearly 11% of all Muslims in the world live in India.
And just to manage the needs and aspirations and desires and dreams of all these peoples together, that is one difficult job. But it's working in India, and you can see it because India is really developing very fast, and economically doing very well. And you have a lot of industries that are making their mark on the international stage. Your defense industry, your automotive industry, of course, your BPO industry is something that mirrors ours, although maybe it's 10 times bigger. And what else can you say, Ambassador, about the growth of the Indian economy, the strength it's flexing its muscles now?
So this year we overtook France as the 6th largest economy in the world, and by the end of the year it is expected that we will overtake the United Kingdom as well. So we will probably end up as the 5th largest economy in the world at the end of 2018 or the beginning of 2019. So the last quarterly figures show our growth rate as 8.2%, which is the fastest growth rate of any major economy in the world. So yes, the economy is doing well. The IT sector is very, very strong. Manufacturing has really picked up in our Make in India program that the Prime Minister launched. And the defense industry, indigenization of defense industry is also a very big priority, as you mentioned. So overall, the economy is looking good, and just like Philippines, actually. Philippines, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, I think by 2030 will be the 24th largest economy in the world. So we see a lot of synergy between our two economies, being young economies with a lot of potential for.
Yes.
In fact, last year our bilateral trade went up by 25%.
That's amazing. Okay.
And Philippines exports went up to by about 50% to India.
Yes. Ambassador, before we talk about Philippines-India relations, let's talk about the economy of India. So it's really growing and going to surpass the United Kingdom, and very impressive statistics. Is are those the fruits of those of all these economic gains? Is it trickling down to because you've got a big population and also a lot of poverty in India?
That's right. So yes and no. Traditionally, economists used to think that growth rate itself was enough to permit trickle down so that everybody grows. But in the last 30, 40 years or so, this has not proved to be the case, especially in countries such as India with large populations, where redistributive means are not very developed. So therefore, it is necessary to have certain kinds of direct transfers and employment generation for lower income people, so that they get a leg up as well. So growth itself, as we have seen, does not result in total eradication of poverty. Poverty certainly has come down. It's come down from about, in the 80s, it used to be about 26% to around 16% now, but that is also still a very large number. So there has to be certain priorities to be set for the poor in order to bring them up above the poverty line.
Yes, sir. What are the future growth centers of the economy, do you think, Ambassador, for India? Where do you think the future lies as far as your country is concerned?
So the digital space is a space where we seem to be quite good at it, and the possibilities there are almost endless. With and especially with Industry 4.0 and things like that, R&D, robotics, artificial intelligence. I think these are areas where we have an enormous pool of trained manpower in science and technology and engineering, I think, which will really stand us in good stead. We have a very vast education complex, which it may be patchy because some of it is not up to the mark, but we are the government is and the private sector is actually investing a lot of money in lifting the standards and bringing about higher standards and uniformity in the whole system. So I think the importance that we give to education, to science and technology, I think will stand us in good stead in the years to come.
Yes. Are there any cooperation agreements with the Philippines in that sense? Because India really is a leader in those fields you mentioned. I hope that we have some sort of collaboration with the Philippines in the offing.
Right. So there is a MOU between the two countries that is being negotiated on higher education and scientific exchanges. So hopefully we shall conclude that by the end of the year. And we also have offered the Philippines facilities for sharing of experience and expertise in, say, space technology and fabrication of, say, satellites and things like that, which I think we in India have come to a stage where we can meet our domestic requirements by ourselves.
Absolutely. Ambassador, we have to pause for a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about the relations between the Philippines and India, specifically what your office is carrying out to bring two countries together. And exciting times, as it is the 70th anniversary of Philippine-Indian relations in November.
That's right.
Which is just 2 months away. All right, so guys, stick around because more of Incredible India with Ambassador Jaideep Mazumdar when Global Village returns.
First time in India?
नहीं, दूसरी बार.
India, incredible India.
Welcome back, folks, to Incredible India. I'm Buddy Kunanan. Tonight's topic is Incredible India, and with Ambassador Jaideep Mazumdar, and he's the Ambassador of India here in the Philippines. So, welcome back, Ambassador. And I have to commend your government for the beautiful videos, tourism videos that you have developed to promote Indian tourism. And anyone can look at these videos. They're all on YouTube, and I think on the channel, Incredible India channel, there's like 250 videos.
Right.
And all really world class, and anyone who watches them would really just want to go to India right away.
That's right.
And it's that beautiful. Okay, before we talk about Philippine-Indian ties, let's talk about you again, Ambassador, because you are from the Northeast, which is from the state of Assam. And by coincidence, your predecessor here was also from the Northeast,
That's
Ambassador Alte, from Mizoram. And I think it's quite coincidental, and not just coincidental, but also providential that we have two ambassadors here, one after the other, from the Northeast. And the Northeast of India has such close ties with Asia.
That's right.
I mean, it's the most Asian-oriented, I would say, part of India, being the proximity to Myanmar, and of course the landmass leading to the rest of Southeast Asia. Do you feel at home here because your roots are so close to Asia, Ambassador?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I was born in a town called Shillong, which is now in the state of Meghalaya. And Baguio reminds me so much of Shillong when I go to Baguio. It's quite uncanny. Both the vegetation, the look of the place, it really brings back very nostalgic memories of Shillong. And yes, the northeast of India, which comprises 7 states, and Ambassador Alte was from one of them, and I'm from the state of Assam. So it shares a 1,600 kilometer long border with ASEAN because we share a land boundary with Myanmar. So today in the government of India's Act East policy, which is to look more towards the east to develop relations with ASEAN countries, with Korea, Japan, China, etc. So in that, since the northeast of India functions like a bridge, between the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia, so the states of the region are very excited and keen on this direct link between South and Southeast Asia. The trilateral highway, which will probably come about in 2 years or so.
Yes.
That will permit somebody to drive from New Delhi to Hanoi or Da Nang and down to Singapore. So we will really be integrated when that happens. And so it's exciting times for the Northeast to be on the cusp between South and Southeast Asia, and lots of possibilities arise. And culturally also we do feel a lot of similarity. There are the Thai Ahoms in Assam, who were a kingdom that ruled unbroken from 1298 to 1836. And they actually trace their origin to Upper Thailand, and a lot of the language is very similar, the words are similar, very many customs are very similar. So yes, you're right, the Northeast has a lot in common with Southeast Asia.
Even the physical appearance of the people, your predecessor, Ambassador Alte, who's been on the show before, and he actually looks very Asian. In fact, I asked him before, and he said it's not uncommon for people to talk to him in Filipino when he was here. And so just to show you, that's how close that part of India is with ASEAN.
Right.
Great. Okay, let's talk about relations between India and ASEAN and Philippines. As you mentioned, strong relations between India and ASEAN, especially there are some anchors really where India has very strong ties to, I think, Thailand, India, Thailand, a lot of presence there, also Malaysia. But unfortunately, traditionally, the Philippines has not really been on that, has not been a top tier when it comes to relations within ASEAN to India. And why is that, Ambassador? Would you say it's because of maybe the lack of awareness of Filipinos about India and vice versa?
No, you're absolutely right. I think India and Philippines are just now beginning to discover each other. In many of the countries of Southeast Asia, there has been some Indian influence, some cultural influence, some religious influence over millennia. For example, the Indian epic, the Ramayana, that is something that is built into the local lore and local epic of Indonesia, in Thailand, in Cambodia, in Laos, to an extent in Vietnam as well. And it was not much known, but even in the Philippines, you know, the Maranao people, they have the Maharadhya Lavana, which is basically the Ramayana, and then they perform it beautifully. We had during the ASEAN 50th year of ASEAN, when Prime Minister Modi was here, one of the opening acts was of the Maranao Maharadhya Lavana, and he was very moved to see that. Since then, we have taken a troupe to India, which has performed to great reviews both in Delhi and Kolkata.
Wow, okay.
So that is one link there certainly. And in language as well, I believe there are a lot of works in Tagalog which trace their origin to Sanskrit.
Yes.
To the Malay language, and it has come here. So yes, there are old links, but I think now we are rediscovering each other.
One word that comes to mind when you talk about the linguistic similarity is the word guru.
That's right, absolutely.
Guru in Filipino, it's guro.
Yes.
So people say, the experts say, it is a direct
Yes.
link between Sanskrit, as mentioned,
Right.
and Filipino. Just that word being teacher for both.
Yes.
Yes. But you know, Ambassador, even from a business point of view, when you compare the trade levels or investments between India and Thailand, for instance, and India and the Philippines, I think the Philippines is a far, you know, it's maybe a fraction
That's
of
right.
what the business of the Thailand is seeing, or Malaysia.
So to give you an example, our bilateral trade with the whole of ASEAN is about 70 billion US dollars. And with the Philippines, this year now we've shown a real increase. It's now $2.5 billion. So that just shows that there is a tremendous potential that remains to be tapped. But I think things are going to change. Just last week we had a big Indian engineering exhibition here. 75 Indian companies participated, and they see tremendous potential in the market, and they want to come back again and again. That is one area. Our vehicle manufacturers, Mahindra, Tata, they are doing good business here. They're beginning to make a dent in the market. As you know, our IT BPO sector has been, all our biggest top Indian companies have been here for years. They have generate tens of thousands of jobs. Tourism is another area where I think there is a lot that we can do between our two countries. Last year, 110,000 Indians came to the Philippines, and
That's huge.
Yes,
Comparatively to
correct,
before, yeah.
correct.
Would you know, Ambassador, how much of an increase that was from previous years?
It was an 18% increase in a year, in a single year.
That's big. That's
Yes.
big.
Then our big companies, like GMR, they have done the Cebu Mactan International Airport project. They are now doing the Clark International Airport expansion project. Then other companies are interested. It's not very widely known, but an Indian company has done the entire land records computerization in the Philippines. So there are many niche areas where Indian companies are working.
Can you do our elections as well? But seriously, I mean, I'm a big admirer of Indians' elections. Ambassador, what do you think is driving this increase? Because I think there really is a direct correlation between awareness on the personal level of one another and the business side of it.
Right.
Because I think that's where a lot of business comes from. When people visit a country, they like it, they see the opportunity, then they say, it opens up their minds, and they say, why not?
True.
Is this what's driving it, or one of the factors?
I think Prime Minister Modi visited here last year in November, and that was the first time an Indian Prime Minister had visited the Philippines in 36 years.
Wow. Who was the last
in Manila.
one? 36 years ago must have
36
been?
years ago was Prime Minister Indira Gandhi when she had come to Manila. So no Indian Prime Minister had come to Manila in all these years, and the President of Philippines went to India last 10 years ago, before President Duterte went to India in January. So I must tell you that both these leaders have bonded well together. They see a lot they see a lot in each other that they can empathize with and understand. Both are people who want to be change agents in their respective countries, create changes in the economy, in the polity. Both of them, I think, come from provincial backgrounds in India, in the state of Gujarat, where our Prime Minister was Chief Minister, and President Duterte from Davao. And both of them are very, very committed against corruption. So I think they find a lot in common between the two of them, and then they gel very well together. And they had very good meetings both the times that they have met recently. So, and on both occasions there was business and interaction. There were big business delegations who had gone to India from here and who had come from. So all that is, I think, driving the relationship forward.
Yes.
And since then, one of President Duterte's requests from us is how to make pharmaceuticals much cheaper in the Philippines through Indian pharma, and we are trying to work out how that can be done. So a lot of Indian pharmaceutical companies are here present today, but I think there are things we can do to really make it more affordable and available to the common man.
Absolutely. Ambassador, on a personal note, whenever I go to India, and as I mentioned, I visit quite often, one of the things I bring back, two things I bring back from India in a big quantity. When I say big, two suitcases full. One is books, incredibly cheap books in India and very good quality. And number two is pharmaceuticals, because I buy medicine for my staff, and they are all, the maintenance meds and antibiotics, all that cost a fraction of what they cost here. And as you said, good quality. What's just surprising for me, Ambassador, is that why it's taken us so long to discover each other. The Philippines discovered India, and India discovered the Philippines, given the strengths, really, that both countries, especially India, has to offer. Huh?
Right.
Why did it take so long?
Yeah, that is really a mystery.
I mean, it's just 36 years ago, the last PM
Yes,
from
that's
India to visit the Philippines. I mean, that is, I wasn't even aware it was that long ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it's partly to do with the fact that in India we are now looking at this region as our extended neighborhood, and ASEAN countries are really the focus of our foreign policy in this area. And we have now a strategic partnership for the last 15 years. We've had a dialogue partnership for 25 years. So we commemorated 25 years of our relationship. So we are looking at each of the countries in the ASEAN region anew, in a sense, with our Act East policy, and seeing how we can really develop these relationships, which are very vital for us. Economically, strategically, politically, this region will continue to be very, very important for us. So that is from my perspective. I guess you will be able to tell better how from the Philippine perspective.
Yes, sir. We'll talk about, sir, how we can link the two countries together, and your initiatives, of course, in your office to further these friendships, and us in the media, how we also promote, the bilateral relations by promoting awareness and information and all that. We have to pause for a break. When we come back, we'll talk about culture, we'll talk about tourism, and all the wonderful stuff that India has to offer. So guys, more of Incredible India when Global Village returns.
This is such a vast country.
I could be anywhere in the world, but here I am.
It is every person's dream to be mesmerized by the beauty of the Taj Mahal.
When you come here, you discover an instant comfort and delight for India.
For me as a designer, I'm inspired by its timelessness.
As a writer, I know that my chapter with India has only just begun.
Food and travel are my passions.
Do you see what I see? Here I am, playing on the world-class golf courses in India. Do you feel what I feel?
India has a power, a magic about it, that draws me back here each time.
I can't wait to go back and discover more.
This is my 8th time here, and it won't be my last.
They are travelers, not citizens of just one nation, who find ways to make home in places that invite them in. And India is not just incredible, India is acquirable. It won't just accept you, but pull you in with open arms, allowing your passions to find peace.
Welcome back to Global Village. I'm Buddy Kunanan. Tonight's topic is, of course, Incredible India, and joining us is Ambassador Jaideep Mazumdar, the Ambassador of India to the Philippines. Ambassador, welcome to our third and final segment. Again, congratulations on the beautiful videos, all courtesy of the Indian Tourism Ministry and Incredible India campaign. Fantastic. How can you not fall in love with India watching those videos? And okay, before we jump into that, let's talk about the relations of India to the Philippines on the ground, in terms of people to people, societal relations. The Philippines has a close relation to India because there's so many Indians Filipinos of Indian heritage.
That's right. And they've been here for now, some of them more than 100 years. Of course, we know about the sepoys who came here even much earlier, as early as 1762, when they came with the British Expeditionary Force, and they mutinied and refused to leave because they liked the place so much. After that, of course, we have had waves of entrepreneurs and traders who have come and settled down here. And they are a very strongly welded community. They are very well adjusted here. They're very well accepted in Philippines society as well, which is really very nice. In fact, President Duterte has mentioned to my Prime Minister on more than one occasion how some of his oldest friends, earliest friends were Indians, and how one of them still remains his best friend. So, so the kind of integration that Indians have had in the Philippines is really heartwarming. They really feel like, you really feel like they're part of the same society. And so many Filipinos have told me, oh, I never thought of so-and-so as actually Indian, So that's very nice. So today we have about 120,000, or a little more than 120,000 Indians in the Philippines. We have 10,000 Indian medical students who study medicine here. We have businessmen, we have traders, we have top IT professionals, managers in CEOs of multinational corporations. So it's a very diverse group of Indians who are here, and they contribute a lot to the Philippine economy. They undertake a lot of CSR activities.
Yes.
The Federation of Chambers of Commerce of India, they undertake many activities by which they help, say, small fishermen by giving them boats to fish for seaweed, income generation and employment generation activities. And even the Gurdwaras of the Sikh people here, they run kitchens. Anybody can walk in and have a meal.
Absolutely.
That is all over the country.
I've been a great admirer of the work of the Indian community here, and I'm saying I speak it from the heart because I know some of them. And what I admire are two things. Number one, as you mentioned, very integrated. They've been here a long time. They speak Filipino. They're Filipinos.
That's right.
But they also maintain their Indian heritage, which I think is fantastic. You can be a child of both worlds. Why not?
Right.
And number two, I'm well aware of the wonderful charities they carry out. Example, when Typhoon Yolanda hit, I understand the Indian community got together and they sent relief goods over there. They I think they sent personnel as well to Leyte to assist. And this is something very admirable. Where does it come from, Ambassador, that desire of the community here to really, chip in and as you mentioned, they're unsung. No one knows, not many people know about the activities of Indian community here. So it's not for the publicity.
Yes. For example, even the Sisters of Charity that we have here, so they don't go around asking for help. But they say that, on any day somebody will come and say, okay, I will finance you or I'll supply you rice for the next 1 month. So they don't really have to go around looking for support that way. So that's a quality that I think the Indians here have really shown great empathy for people who are in distress, and that comes from India as well, from their communities back in India, where if there is a natural disaster, or even if a family has fallen into hard times for some reason, the community gets together to help them. So I think it's very innate, and they don't really look for any recognition or praise in that respect. It just comes as something automatic.
And these are things that we should be celebrating as we celebrate the 70th anniversary of Philippine-Indian relations, happening, start this November. That's the official 70th anniversary. This is the beginning. What are your plans, Ambassador? You're in your office for celebrating this very auspicious occasion.
Oh, so we plan to celebrate India in the Philippines for a year. And we intend to have, Indian music, Indian dance, various kinds of cultural events, film festivals, food festivals. So we will keep the year packed with lots of activities.
Yes. Okay. How about in terms of the, on an official level, anything exciting happening this year and going to next year? What can we look forward to? Major milestones.
I think we will probably have our bilateral joint commission meeting between the two countries sometime in November, December. And that would also be the time to kick off the year's celebrations, with a big, cultural program and things like that. So yes, that's what's being planned for this year, and many more next year as well. Another thing that we want to do is promote Indian tourism here, and for that as well, we will have standalone activities to let the people know about what they can expect from India. You yourself, I know, has been to India many times, and it's wonderful that you've seen so many parts of India, some of which I haven't seen myself. Yes, I think tourism promotion both ways is something that we can definitely do next year. And one thing that will drive it, I suppose, is when we finally have direct flights again between our two countries.
I hope so, because Philippine Airlines, our flag carrier, did have a run, very short, sadly, a few years ago. It didn't work out, but I really hope that this time, a business model can be worked on that will really ensure its success and continued operation. The Manila to Delhi flight.
That's right.
And as you said, Ambassador, this will really boost tourism both ways.
Yes, because we are one of the fastest growing sources of tourism for the Philippines, and so I'm sure that with direct flights that can only grow. And that itself will be able to sustain 3-4 flights a week between India and here. So apart from Philippine Airlines, some Indian carriers are also looking at the Philippines market, not necessarily from Delhi, but from some other city in India.
Which is actually good, because it gives you an option to fly to Mumbai or Kolkata direct from the Philippines. And actually Kolkata is quite close. It's a lot closer than flying to Delhi.
That's right.
Must be
2 hours closer than Delhi.
Yeah, so maybe 5 hours maybe?
Calcutta will be maybe 4.5.
4.5, very close. It's like going to Japan. That's so close. So we have this wonderful country, India, so close actually, but a lot of Filipinos sadly have overlooked it. But this is something we hope to change, because your country, Ambassador, it really has so much to offer. It's not something you can do in one trip, not even 10 trips. I mean, I've been there maybe closer to the 10-trip mark, but there's still so many things I want to see.
Yes. So most Filipinos that I have spoken to, they've mostly been to what is called the Golden Triangle, which is the deserts of Rajasthan, and then they do Agra, Jaipur, Delhi. These are the three corners of the
I think most
triangle.
Tourists tend to do that.
In a way, it's understandable, because if you are a first-time tourist to India, then you want to see the grandeur of the palaces, the forts, and where the kings and queens lived in the days of yore. But India, as you rightly said, has so much to offer in terms of variety.
Staggering.
That if you are a repeat tourist, then there are so many options that you have. You could go right up into the mountains in the Himalayas. You could go down south. You could go east, where you have so many game sanctuaries. If you are a wildlife enthusiast, you could go to the cold deserts of Ladakh, which has spectacular scenery. I have so many Filipinos who are bikers who wish to do that. There's a bike ride from to Ladakh through Kashmir.
It's just difficult. You have to acclimatize first.
Yes, so you have to stop along the way and acclimatize yourself.
It's that high. You have to get yourself used to the altitude.
About 14,000, 15,000 feet in parts. So yes, there's a tremendous amount that, as the Incredible India videos show you, a great variety of not only of landscapes, but languages. Every state, there are 22 major languages which are recognized in the constitution. The cuisine is different, climatology is different, for flora and fauna are different. So it's like visiting a continent. So you can take your pick.
Ambassador, a lot of people are intimidated with India. When they think about India, they think all the images come to mind, and it's just in many lay people's minds, when they think about tourism destination, they tend to go to easier, more comfortable destinations. What advice would you give
Yes.
travelers who
Sure.
could be looking into going to India as their next
Right.
bucket list tourism stop?
So broadly, you can say there are two kinds of tourists. Those who are the adventure tourists who just want to take a backpack and just go there and discover for themselves. And then there are others, like you said, who are intimidated. They want to have it well planned out. They don't want to be caught somewhere, unawares. So fortunately, the Indian travel industry has developed phenomenally over the last 20 years or so. Now you have tailor-made programs, which you can sit with them and discuss. You don't like to do this, you would rather do this, don't want a 6 o'clock start, you want an 8 o'clock start. And it's not necessary that you have to go in a big group. It could be tailored to your family or to the few people that you're traveling with. And they can, make these beautiful programs for you with exactly the content that you want. And, hand-holding from the point you arrive to the time you say bye-bye. So there's those packages that are readily available.
Now, Ambassador, total magical experience going to India, and I'm sure everyone and anyone who goes there will have the same experience I've had and really just fall in love with your country the way I have many times over. Ambassador, we've come to the end of our show. Would you like to say something to the audience before we go?
Just to say that we were discussing a lot about tourism actually, so we would love to see more and more Filipinos coming to India to discover India. That's the way one can really develop the people-to-people relations, which is so important. We have done a lot during the last year. We have had rock bands going to India. We have youth groups. We have had media people going to India. So that has really brought about some energy in our people-to-people relations. But I think tourism is something that can both ways. And I want more and more of my Indian friends to come and visit us here and see the Philippines and the beauty that the Philippines has to offer. I've been to many parts of the Philippines, but I still have a number of them to cover.
But your favorite place is Baguio, which is my second home.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Baguio, Palawan, Boracay, all beautiful places.
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you very much for the wonderful work you're doing to bridge our two countries and to further Philippine-Indian relations. Thank you very much, sir. And we hope to have you here again on GN on Global Village.
It'll be a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Guys, I hope you enjoyed our show tonight on Incredible India. Truly a staggeringly beautiful, monumental place to visit. You must go. So before we leave you, we're going to leave you now with a video of Rajasthan, which the Ambassador was talking about just a while ago. It's one of the most beautiful places in India and part of the Golden Triangle, the Delhi, Rajasthan, Taj Mahal, Agra triangle. So enjoy Rajasthan.
Hey! Hey, guys! Get the bags! Hurry up! Come on! Get the bags! I think there's someone there. Hey! What?
Look!
What?
So awesome!
Looks crazy, right?
I know!
आर्य को राजस्थान कुछ ऐसा दिखा.
Wow, we'll all fit? All of us? Helmets?